Peace and elevation, family. It's your brother Mike X. Welcome to another clip from my YouTube channel, Brother Mike X Speaks. Family, I ask you to subscribe, to my YouTube channel. Push the like button. Share this video with friends, family, associates that you feel may be positively impacted, by this video. What I want to talk to you today about, and it's something that I've talked about, before in other preceding videos that I've shot and posted. I want to talk to you about the need for a greater presence from the adults, black men, black women, who have achieved a level of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, truth, maturity, love, the ability to overflow these qualities into our communities. We are desperately needed to get busy in the various cities and neighborhoods that we live in, And Black America is not one monolithic, cohesive community where we all live in the same space and place. But I would say on the grassroots level, the local levels, we need to be more present. And in order for us to be more present on those local levels, we have to commit ourselves within ourselves to be better. Now that we know better, we have to be committed towards doing better. Yes, our communities have become places of self-hatred, self-doubt, and fear, of savage, parasitic behavior that we visit a lot of times on each other. And a lot of us, yes, have become in that environment, in that chaos and confusion. I'm just going to mind my business. I'm not getting involved. I'm not speaking out. I'm just going to try to ride this out. Keep my head down. Put 5 or 6 locks on my door, and try to ride this out. But that level of non-engagement, of irresponsibility, is allowing untold damage and destruction to occur in the black cities and neighborhoods, man, on that local level, man. I'm impacted heavily right now. And I've worked with young people for almost 30 years. I've worked with young people in the local community centers. I've worked with young people in the group homes and foster care and non-secured detention, secured detention. So across that time span, I've been working with young people for a lot of years. And I'm still working with young people today. And I see our young people being turned into savages, monsters, who are visiting their hatred on other people who look just like them, who are in the same predicament that a lot of them find themselves in. Families that have been destroyed, missing fathers, missing mothers, A lot of times, no extended family to connect with. No village presence and practice in the black neighborhoods. No positive culture that is being practiced that would provide a safety net for these young brothers and sisters, man. Sucked in by gang culture through the absence of the black village, through the absence of the positive presence and practice of having a cohesive adult base, from the elders to the middle age to the young adults and parents, that goes all the way down to meet them where they're at. Our children are being sucked into a ravenous vortex of the criminal justice system, into foster care, into all of these agencies that I've talked about, that I've worked in. And I have to be honest to say that a lot of these agencies and a lot of these programs, get more out of the bargain than they actually deliver to the young people who's supposed to be serviced and helped and supported. There's a lot of bureaucracy that takes precedence over actually striving to connect with the young people and help them to change their minds and to change their hearts from participating in a mindset and a practice that is anti-life, anti the lives of the so-called ops, and anti their own lives, where a lot of them, they're afraid to love because love is considered weak. Love makes you vulnerable a lot of times. So a lot of these young people, man, they have been sold on the necessity of being unfeeling, hard-hearted, uncaring, of desiring to, I'm gonna hurt you before you get a chance to hurt me. And this stereotype of our young people being thugs and criminals and delinquents, that is perpetuated through the mass media, that's perpetuated through the music that their favorite rap star a lot of times puts out, that accentuates that parasitic, savage mindset that so many of them are giving their lives towards. It's helping a lot of people to see them as just that, monsters, parasites, juvenile delinquents, thugs. And so a lot of the programmatic initiatives are focused on dealing with the repercussions of that adopted persona of thugism, of delinquency, of being, of savagery. So there's no change. if that's all you see these young people as. If you don't understand that there has been a system that has destroyed the black family, that has separated the black fathers and men from the households and the communities at large, and has left our women a lot of times as the only support system. And then in a lot of instances, they don't even have that. If you're not willing to see that this community has been destroyed, and you're not willing to tell the truth about the forces that have destroyed and taken advantage of these communities, then you might find yourself participating in a systematic approach that takes advantage of these people, these children, who have fallen through the cracks. And they are not just jobs, They are not just dollar symbols, man, for you to take advantage of and for you to disdain, and have a hatred or a bias towards as you make money off of them. You have to be able to have enough love and compassion in your own heart and your own mind to be able to move past the persona, the veneer of someone who has been traumatized, who came up in an environment where they wasn't supported physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, where some of them never knew love, where they've had, family members and other support systems taken away from them, to where now they're jaded and they're angry and they're non-trusting. You can't just throw your hands up in the air, man, and give up on them, but by the same token continue to take money and paychecks to leave them where they're at, to get down on their level, just so that you won't have to be personally invested in helping them. That shit is whack, man. And I've seen a lot of people do things like that. You have to be able to love yourself and love their humanity enough to be able to see past the monster, criminal thug persona and veneer and posturing that a lot of them are holding on to protect a soft, delicate, hopeful side that you might not be able to see, but is there, I promise you, in a lot of them. If you can get to them and be long-suffering enough to maybe suffer them trying to abuse you, to prove to themselves that they're right, and embracing the posturing of being a monster, being someone, who is not open to forming relationships of love and trust. It's a self-defense mechanism a lot of times. They don't want to open themselves up again and see someone that they try to trust turn on them or be taken away from them. So a lot of them are choosing to be, you know, angry. You know, extremely angry and violent sometimes in their rebuke of you. You might remind them of someone who let them down. But you have to be willing to love them through the process that it may take for them to begin to see something in themselves that they haven't been willing to pour their energy into. It's a must that we begin to do this, family. You know, I've worked with young people. I'm still working with young people. I choose not to say the agency and all of that I'm working through, because I don't want to violate any particular laws, you know, that are put in effect to supposedly protect them. But I tell you, if a lot of the people who work in these agencies, and let me say, I'm not saying that the agencies are particularly bad. I'm not saying that the agencies are intentionally run to take advantage of them. What I'm saying though is if you don't possess the hope, the faith of love and truth, if you don't possess that, if you're not practicing that, if you're not meditating upon that, if you're not fanning the flames of that love and that truth and that hope and that faith, so that you can overflow that love, that hope, that truth, that faith into the lives of our youth who have been turned into, again, these savages, you know, these monsters, these parasites, these thugs, these criminals. If you're not nurturing that type of love, that type of hope and confidence and faith in your own life, then you're not going to be able to reach them. And you may fall into the segment of those people who are taking advantage of them for your paycheck, for your livelihood. And so it doesn't matter, man, that you work with them. And it doesn't matter that you pat them on the back. And instead of taking the opportunity for you to be vulnerable yourself, to try to connect with them in a meaningful way, to help them to reconnect with their humanity, their lost humanity. It doesn't matter that you might have worked with them for 10, 15, 20 years, man. If you was only there as a worker, as a staff member, you know, but you never took the time, man, to be vulnerable and to show them real love and real concern. If you haven't put the work into your own life to continue to grow mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So that when you work with them, you're not getting down on the level of I'm your buddy, I'm your friend, crossing that line. Like, nah, you got to maintain a level of maturity. You got to maintain a level of authority that you hold yourself to, even if they don't respect it. Because I've worked with young people who I exhibited that love and that truth and that tough love, that mental, emotional, spiritual maturity, where I'm not here to be your friend. And I'm going to hold you accountable to the principles and standards of life. And I've suffered sometimes, some of these young people not liking me or maybe even hating me because I wasn't trying to pat them on the back. I wasn't giving them an easy way to go. I wasn't telling them that you right when I knew that they was wrong and I knew that they was on a path of self-destruction, dying at an early age or being locked up for the rest of their lives. Nah. Being someone of principles and standards that I strive to hold myself to. Choosing to work with them because I wanted to make a difference, not because I wanted to get paid off of their trauma. I would challenge them a lot of times. Challenge them in ways that they don't want to be challenged, particularly because a lot of my adult peers wasn't challenging them. They were taking advantage of the trauma that these young people have suffered so that they can have an easy shift or an easy job. You know what I mean? And so from a naive, young, impressionable, or mindset, or a mindset that doesn't want to be challenged, they would choose the adults who were giving them an easy way to go. That's my man. Oh, word, he's coming. It's going to be a ball today. It's going to be fun. And me, the one who's going to challenge them, or people like me that's going to challenge them to adopt new standards and new customs that would help them to learn how to practice love and maturity in their own life so that they can begin the process of reclaiming their humanity, reclaiming their godliness, so that at some point they can move on from the destructive path that they was on. I wouldn't get that love, but you know what? I had to stand strong on my ideals of holding myself accountable, man, to love and truth. And then I'll tell you, family, that sometimes 5 years later, 6 years later, 10 years later, some of the youth, man, who hated me the most at the time, I might see them, man, in a supermarket, or I might bump into one of them in the pizzeria, walking down the street. Yo, Mr. Hinton, oh my God. Yo, man. Yo, you was so right. I wish I would have listened. You were so right. I'm going to finish this off by saying, family, we as adults, we have a personal responsibility to strive to go after our youth, to strive to rebuild the black village that some of us of my age remember. That time where parents and adults had a greater relationship between one another, even if we didn't necessarily love, or they didn't necessarily love each other or respect each other. They still had a working relationship where they looked out for each other's children. They looked out for each other's interests, particularly when that parent wasn't present to look out for their own interests. And they would let that parent know, if they saw their child being out of pocket, to put them on so that they would know that, I gotta address this. Or they would also, a lot of times, address the child themselves. And it wasn't back then what it is now. Yo, you ain't my mother. Yo, whatever, man. You're not my father. You're not my mother. That's not what it was back then. It wasn't from the parents like it is now. Yo, don't say nothing to my boy. Don't say nothing to my girl or my child. That's my child. Don't be talking to my child. Nah, back then it was like, yo, thank you for putting me on. Thank you for looking out. We practiced a stronger cohesiveness back then. And as parents, a lot of times, we would empower other parents to look out for our kids, to check our kids. And we would say to our kids like, yo, I better not catch you being disrespectful to Mrs., whoever, or Mr. whoever. They would empower that adult in front of their child and let them know that if that parent catches you being out of pocket, and God forbid you disrespect that parent, you're going to have to deal with me. Yo, we got to rebuild that, family. We got to rebuild that, And there's a lot of things, man, that destroyed that type of familial extended family bond, that destroyed that black village practice amongst us. The flooding of our communities, man, with drugs and guns. The taking away from our communities of jobs and economic opportunities, to where a lot of us embrace through pain, through not being able to be fathers, protectors and providers, as they say. The pain of not being able to hold that down and not having a legitimate way to do that made some of us turn to drugs and guns, fighting each other over the ability to sell death and poison to each other. Seeing, your parent being turned into a drug addict, or just your parent being murdered or taken away from you. It destroyed the familial bonds, the black village that we used to have. And a lot of, the elderly, a lot of grandmothers and grandfathers tried to step in to fill the void of parenting their lost children's children. But a lot of these grandparents didn't have the vitality and vigor to maintain that challenging task. And this is how a lot of our children got introduced into being a foster care member, or being put in group homes and things of that nature, where they couldn't depend upon the love and the trust of a parental figure, of a family member. We got to do more, family. We have to commit ourselves to a process of mental, emotional, spiritual growth to revive our love for ourselves, so that we can then overflow that love back into our communities, back into the hearts and minds of our children. You can't, they say that people will never care what you know until they know that you care. So it's not enough to strive to use knowledge and authority on the children. People will never care what you know until they know that you care. You have to have the ability to show and prove that you actually care. Which means in the beginning stages of building a new relationship with our youth, we're going to have to be humble. And we're going to have to be willing to take the rebuke of that hurt, that pain. They say hurt people. And a lot of our children are hurt. They're suffering in pain and neglect, you know, and abandonment. So having said that, man, this is your brother Mike X. I say peace, love, and elevation, man, to the black family, to the black neighborhood scattered across these so-called United States of America. I ask you to commit yourself as an individual to seeking knowledge, seeking love, seeking truth, building up the type of mind, building up the type of emotional serenity and peace and love, reconnecting spiritually to our Creator in whatever form you believe in such. And know that your life, you are a vessel, possibly, of peace, of transformation, a vessel of love, a vessel of hope, a vessel of faith, to be used as a conduit, man, to allow love and power to flow through you back into our children. We have the ability to transform their lives, to rehumanize them, so to speak, to help them to reverse the process to which some of them have fell into parasitic, monstrous, savage behavior. As you save yourself, you gain the ability to save them. So having said that, I say peace, love, and elevation.